Hello, everybody, and welcome to another My Music. Today, I'm going to be talking to Harry, who I've had in the studio a number of times now. Was it the third time, fourth time? I can't remember.
Something like that. Yes, it's delighted to be here, of course.
Yeah, something like that. But not in 2025. We managed to get there.
Yeah,
You
indeed.
see? Yeah. Are you feeling another year older? Are you or younger? Or how do you
Well,
find it going into a different year?
you hope that there's a kind of a pause button whereby you don't actually have to feel any younger or older, and you just keep going in this direction, and in the hope that it won't catch up with me. But no, all good, I have to say.
Good. Our hair's getting spikier as we get
Oh
on.
yes, I must have woken up with a bit of a kind of a Stan Laurel kind of looker to it. But hey,
Well,
great man.
we shall be speaking to Harry about the new Inca Babies album, Ghost Mechanic 9, straight after this.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
Harry, tell us, Ghost Mechanic 9, that's a title. Are there 9 ghost mechanics? What's a mechanic ghost?
Well, it starts, I suppose. The 9 part is the
Yeah.
9th studio album, and on the first album, Rumble, we had a track called "Greaseball Mechanic," and so the Greaseball Mechanic has travelled with us, and eventually he gets another mention in Ghost Mechanic because it's such a long time that he's now a ghost of a mechanic. I don't know. It's something along those lines.
It's a bit like your Eddie then for Iron Maiden. He keeps coming, popping,
yeah,
keeps popping up.
Although Eddie did appear on pretty much every record. Ours can only or our version of Eddie is at the beginning, Rumble, and now the last one, which is Ghost Mechanic 9, which I just happen to have in my hand here.
Yeah. Do you feel like you could ever, create an embodiment of this character? Do you think you could have them on stage? I mean, not maybe a giant inflatable like Iron Maiden have, but I don't know, maybe a 2D or 3D, giant cutout or something.
Yeah, no, he's more of an ethereal character in my mind, as opposed to anything that could be 3D or made large. It's just one of those interesting characters that we develop, but never really needs to see anyone else apart from as a part of a song. And he's just appeared. The Greaseball Mechanic now is a ghost mechanic because his time as a sentient being has begun, I suppose. But yeah, anyway, I'm wittering away about something that I haven't really thought about much, but it's definitely from the first album to the last. So there you go.
Now, musically, it's a really good stomple kind of, kind of nudge to the past, growl. This album,
yeah. There's a, I think I was listening to. We actually went in and we recorded some old tracks for no other reason apart from we wanted to do dub versions of them. And one of the tracks we did was Big Jugular, and I realized that we hadn't actually managed to create that or kept a lot of that energy in that song for some of the later records we've made. So it was a concerted effort to have a big grinding rhythm throughout a lot of the songs, and certainly things like the title track and Insect Symphony, which has that sort of chugging sort of guitar running through it, just a keep going.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other tracks have cottoned onto that as well, and it was very much a house style. I do like a record that when you listen to
I just love the way you just said like the other tracks cottoned onto it. It's almost like you've got tracks talking to tracks. have you listened to what's going on that track?
Yes, wouldn't you like a
could
bit
you
of that?
please? Yeah, could you please? You know, you're a bit insipid at the moment. I just want you to have a bit more body.
Do you see? We want everything to be in. I mean, it's like the stars need to be aligned all at the same time,
In
just so that the
symbiote
record
with each
happens.
other. Yeah, oh, I love that. Did you then have to approach anything a bit, technically different in order to produce that sound?
No, it's funny, isn't it? Because as far as I'm concerned, I still think when we go into record a record, we still think in the same way that we did years and years ago, as in you lay the instruments down, and well, of course, we're doing it digitally. We don't have those great big tape recording machines. There's multi-track things anymore because they're impractical and they take too long to record. So we didn't use that, obviously. But the digital process is in essence the same, of course, but it's not analog. Although we kind of think in analog, and when we put the tracks down, we know that we have to put it down and do as fewer takes as possible in order to make it as live and as vibrant as possible. But of course, nowadays, you can put a few notes down and then just slowly manipulate them into the right places, and you have a track. But the idea was to make it as vibrant and as bouncy as possible, as if we were playing live.
Yeah.
Of
so
course,
which track on the album? Which track on the album came out or birthed easy, and which was a bit more problematic?
Well, probably one of the easiest ones is I suppose what's it called? Mercury is Down, because it's just one riff. And so just one riff played over and over and over and over again.
Then you've got to get it right. You've got to get it right for the duration.
Yeah, and it was actually, once we'd worked out exactly how it went, we just played it and played it and played it. And after a bit, you kind of get into that, and it just unfurls into this great monster of a riff, which it did, and people have picked up on that because it's quite a fun song. I'd say just a one riff song. I suppose Insect Symphony is another sort of one big riff with a chorus thrown in. But again, a lot of songs. In fact, now I think about it, Augustus Timpan is one riff all the way through. So can you see there's a theme here of not pushing the songs too far? We're not looking at too many middle eights or instrumental breaks or anything or bridges and all these important parts that go into pop songs. We wanted a good grinding rhythm.
I think that's the t-shirt for if you ever take this live is one riff is enough.
Well, that's it. One riff song.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of the record was dedicated to some of those bands that aren't around anymore, who had those big chugging riffs, like I suppose the Ramones, the Cramps, the Gun Club, the Birthday Party, the Stooges.
Yeah.
My favourite sort of bands from the 70s and 80s, who were very much of that ilk. I mean, they were obviously some were more sophisticated than one riffs, but my memory of those bands, and I still listen to them, is that they had a real sense of a pounding rhythm.
Yeah, and just felt like music that you could come straight out of the club to as well.
Oh yeah, I hope so. Yeah, you need to have somewhere to go when the moment takes you away from, as you say, the club. And so yeah, I would. I'll take that. I think that's a good place to be.
Yeah. Well, outside of this record, what have you been up to then?
Well, last year, myself and Marco Butcher, who is my collaborator for solo stuff, he also played a bit on this record, actually, on Ghost Mechanic 9. But we put together some tunes and released a record. What was it called? Because we've released a few things. He keeps putting my stuff, our stuff rather, on Bandcamp, so I'm confused. But We Are the Perilous Men was a record that came out last year, and that was great fun because that had a real sense of lots of strange ideas, a bit Tom Waits here, a bit kind of Moose Allison there, a bit kind of Nick Cave, and all sorts of different ideas going on. So we had fun with that, and a few gigs, not many gigs. We like to pick and choose carefully when we do a gig. This year, hopefully, we've got a few coming up. We're going to Poland to play to Return to the Batcave. We never actually played the Batcave, so I don't suppose we can actually return to it. But in this case, we are returning to the Batcave.
I mean, you're constantly producing stuff. You seem to be on a kind of constant, creative streak. Do you get confused by your own output? Do you think that your audience gets confused by your output, or do you think that they? And is it the same audience across your output, or do you find that there are differences?
No, I think the audience are far more together than I am. I often will write a song and thinking, where was that directed towards? And then I find it falling in between the two of them, like a big stonking rocker who shouldn't really fit, or doesn't really fit to piano, which is generally the modus operandi of the solo work, whereas guitar is very much the Inca Babies. But having said that, Marco wrote this great song, which I put lyrics to, which was the Exhaust of Broken Dreams, and that's actually one of Marco's songs, which we put on the Inca Babies record. So can you see how things are starting to mix? They're either polluting each other, or they're creating some great mix of concoction. So no, you're absolutely right. It's a tricky one. I get confused. Hopefully the audiences are far more discerning and can spot the difference.
There's definitely a strand that falls between all of the stuff that you do. I mean, you like you like a rockier side of things. You like a meteor side of things. Whatever. Have you ever woken up one morning and gone, do you know what? I'm going to write something completely different that none of my audience would expect?
Well, some of my rather lilting piano tunes off my first album, they were quite sort of gentle, if you like, but with a rocking background. So there may have been the gentle piano song, but maybe somewhere behind there was this great monster trying to get out, which had a big flying V guitar and a Marshall stack behind it. But having said that, I surprise myself every now and again. Although these songs don't always get to see the light of day, but I do write some lovely melodic little tunes every now and again.
I mean, do you sort of like, from time to time just create sort of ambient electronic-y type stuff with,
Funny you should mention that. I was listening to this really good band called Turning, who are a kind of electronic band, and I first heard them on Radio 3 of all things. I was driving back, and the only radio station.
What, you started classical then?
Well, no, it's not. Radio 3 actually has late night sort of experimental programs, and I found myself. We were driving back from a gig, and we put on this late night. I think it was a jazz, strange ambient program, and we heard this amazing band called Turning, and it was fantastic. I was very inspired by this, and of course, in the car, I couldn't work out who they were at all because for some reason, my Shazam wasn't working. And so I had to come back and...
I've just got to interrupt you for 2 seconds. Isn't it annoying, right? DJs never announce who people are that they're playing these days.
Well, I think they presume everyone knows who this is. No, you're right, they didn't. I had to go to the schedules and work out who it was.
Yeah.
And then play back it because even the schedules weren't clear. And eventually I found out it's this band called Turning, and I found them. The only place I could find them was on Spotify, which I can't bear to go on Spotify, but I did on this occasion just because it was the only place I could find it. They didn't have a Bandcamp site. I'm sure they will in the future. So yeah. What was my point? Yeah, experimental. Yeah, so that very much inspired me, and I did try out some stuff with guitars. And I put all these guitars down, and it ended up sounding like Sonic Youth. So you can see that I'm kind of drawn towards certain genres and certain areas of music, which I can't help myself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you were listening to this kind of ambient, slightly jazzy,
Yeah,
melodic stuff, and your interpretation of that when you started playing with it ended up like Sonic Youth. I love that.
it did, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I mean, this tune will never see the light of day apart from in my little studio where I can listen back to it and go, well, that nearly worked.
Yeah. If you're talking to like, if you're talking to young people about music though, or whatever, or creating music or film or anything else, because I know you do that sort of stuff outside of making music. Do you give them advice that goes against your own ethos, if it were, or do you say, actually, no, you can regardless of what anybody else tells you, just carry on doing what you're doing?
Well, I mean, it's funny actually with music, because I work at the Manchester Film School, and there is this element of I'm trying to get people to create their own soundtracks in a way, which often is just like a drone or a piece of music that just creates a vibe or an atmosphere.
Strange electronic sounds, as someone I know that makes that stuff calls it. Yeah.
Just because it's another creative process, which I think if you're a filmmaker, you should tap into in the same way that a lot of great filmmakers, John Carpenter and David Lynch, were very very keen to make their own music for records. But and then of course they start and they make this, and of course the first thing they come out with is something so obvious and terribly cliched and just dull as hell. You sort of say, well, that's a good place to start, but. And I try and get them to avert, and because it's new to them, they go, "Wow, that's great, that's great." And I'm going, yes, but 1,000 other people have also done that. So you have to kind of get people to push a little bit further. I mean, it's a bit unfair of me to say, "Oh, that's been done before," because as far as they're concerned, it's never been done before, and it's totally new to them.
Yeah.
But again, as their tutor, I must give them advice and guidance, but without destroying their confidence at the same time.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's one of those things. They learn their own way eventually, but again, it's all part of being a teacher, I suppose.
Well, it is. It's like it's all part of being a dad as well. I mean, how many of your students know what you do outside of being there on a professional capacity?
It's funny because I never tell them, but they always find out because someone grasses me up and says, "Oh, do you know he's got he puts out records and he's a musician and he does this. Go on his Bandcamp site or his Spotify. I'm on Spotify, of course. Go and check him out." And they do, and they come up to me and go, "Oh, I've just listened to your records, really good." They say in a kind way. I'm not sure.
Do you know what? I'm going to confess now. I'm going to confess because when I was at university, my film tutor, I did the same thing because they were in a band. Do you know what band they might have been in? If I tell you that this was Sunderland in the mid-90s.
In Sunderland in the 90s. Who would that have been? Not the Anti-Nowhere League, obviously.
No, the band was Penetration.
Penetration. Wow.
Yeah.
I bumped into Jake Burns when I worked at the BBC, who was working at the BBC. And I go, "You're Jake Burns from Stiff Little Fingers." And he goes, "Aye." Because he did. He worked for the BBC for a number of years. And I was wow, because I'd seen him perform in the late 70s. But anyway, that's why I went off on a tangent there. But yeah, no, it's amazing how these people they appear when you least expect them to.
I know, but it's quite cool at the same time.
Oh yeah,
Penetration were really quite a cool band. I was quite impressed. I was just
I
like,
saw them. Yeah, saw them recently to support the Damned, and I never saw them the first time round though, which is a great shame because I knew all. It's funny because when they played recently, I knew all the songs. I've clearly had listened to the album. I don't think I had a copy of it, but I certainly knew most of the songs. So it's one of those strange things whereby it was all around me and I didn't even realize it.
yeah. I it's funny the stories that come out when you're talking about one thing in music, or you're watching one thing, and then these little stories come out from your past. I had a story the other day. My wife and I went to see, and as someone that loves film as well, I don't know whether you've seen this. Have you seen the Better Man film, the Robbie Williams film at all?
No, I haven't. I hear it's rather good though.
Yeah, it's quite different as a sort of biopic. The choice of the way that he's done it. But anyway, we were getting towards the end of our Odeon pass for the year, and that was on, and we thought, well, why not? So we went to see it, and there's a scene in the film. No spoilers in case you haven't seen it, but there's a scene in the film from the early days of Take That when they were tried to be thrust upon the gay community as the sort of gay band, and the manager tried to get them to play every single gay club around the country. Now, I met Take That at that time because they came into the radio station, but I kind of blanked them because more interestingly for me, I had Manfred Mann in the studio, and I just found I just thought that was more interesting. Little did I know that they would go on to become, as big as they were. I just thought, who are these guys who didn't get dressed properly this morning?
Well, Manfred Mann at the time, of course, were legends and probably still are this day. But now, yeah, Take That. I remember a few years ago, my other half went to see them. They sold out something like 5 nights in the Manchester City Stadium.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they absolutely massive, and that's just in Manchester. They could have probably done it in a lot of other cities as well. But there you go.
Yeah,
amazing, huge band.
In terms of film and music, your favorite ever music based film?
I don't know. I quite there was a very good film by Alex Cox called A Repo Man, which is one of the first soundtracks I ever bought, which is the Repo Man sound. Now, it's not incidental music. It's not cinematography. It's not soundtrack. It's just the collection of songs put together to make the record. To make the film really jump out at you for some reason. These songs. But I think the one song that was made for the film was the actual song Repo Man, which was sung by Iggy Pop, which is a fantastic song. But I remember that being a really important soundtrack. And then, of course, you've got actual soundtracks, which the other one I bought, which was Paris, Texas.
Paris, Texas.
Which had Ry Cooder playing the most extraordinary, lilting,
Harry Dean Stanton, isn't it?
That's right. So this slide guitar that goes all the way through, creating this incredible
because it's a road trip. It's basically a long road, and his guitar is effectively like the journey.
It is totally. And Harry Dean Stanton is the character looking for his girlfriend, and he just walks across the desert endlessly, looking for Rosanna Arquette.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, well, he finds her eventually, but the journey is an extraordinary one. Wim Wenders. I was trying to remember the director, but yeah, Ry Cooder's music in that is one of the most memorable things in terms of soundtrack, and I've always loved that. And I tried to put that into some of the music, the early Inca Babies music. We love that, but Ry Cooder did it so well. It was hard to recreate or even attempt anything as good as that. So that's I mean, in terms of soundtrack, I mean, there's some brilliant ones along the way. Uh, every now and again, I mean, from the classics of Ennio Morricone through to, I mean, even Nick Cave does some very good soundtracks.
Very true. I think the first soundtrack I ever bought was Birdie.
Oh,
which was
Birdie.
which is a
Interesting.
Peter Gabriel based soundtrack for
It is.
the film by Alan Parker.
That's right. Yeah, that's an interesting film. Yeah.
It's a very interesting film. If people haven't seen it, it's what was it? Matthew Modine in the lead part, playing this
Yeah.
character that's come back from Vietnam, and there's kind of he's
Well, he's a traumatized wreck, and he comes through the other side, doesn't he? Through not so much
kind of,
treatment as opposed
well,
to
kind of retreating into his childhood where he had this relationship with birds, which is
That's right.
it's fascinating.
Yeah.
The power of film. What film would you like one of your songs to be in? Or if someone was making a film,
Yeah.
what would you
Well,
like?
it's funny because Ghost Mechanic 9, the actual track, is very much a driving through the night kind of song.
You know, I was thinking that could be great.
Yeah. There's a black and white film called Detour, which was made in 1940 something or other. Very short, very brilliant thing. I think it was by Edgar Ulmer, the director, and brilliant. And there's this scene. I mean, it's basically about a guy who hitchhikes to California, and unfortunately, he gets a lift with some ne'er-do-well, a number of people, and his life just collapses around events that happen just through sheer bad luck. And he arrives in California, and he knows that I've arrived, but I'm about to go to jail, or something along those lines. Anyway, I haven't seen it for ages, but brilliant. Anyway, the journey through of his disintegrating mind as he realizes that everything is going to hell, with a good soundtrack like that in the background might add something to the film, or not. Maybe wishful thinking, but yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in today to talk. I knew we'd always go off everywhere. If you can imagine or do you imagine your listeners listening to this album that you've just put out as a soundtrack to part of their lives? Do you ever think about that? I mean, I quite often listen to music, and I know when I talk to other people, they quite often say, "Oh yeah, I listen to it when I'm on the train or I'm in the car." And I like seeing the things go by and then kind of imagining things. Do you ever know that when you're writing that that's where it's going to end up?
Absolutely, because that's the way I, like yourself, that's how I listen to records. I listen to them with its own, it's a theatre of the mind. My head is spinning with images and ideas and characters. It may be relevant to the music, it may not, but I think that interpretation, when you listen to someone else's music, is probably one of the most exciting things that there is in listening to a record. So I sincerely hope that people who do listen to the record, maybe they see that road journey, or they imagine some strange scenario being acted out as the music takes them into this world. Theatre of the mind is what I hope our record does.
It'd be really interesting. I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with AI. Do you hate it or do you love it?
No, I can't stand it. Only because it's if people get into the habits of using it too much, then they will basically give up their creativity, and they'll rely on this because it's the expediency of getting something done very quickly. I mean, I spent I spent 6 years with Ghost Mechanic 9 because I couldn't get it right, and I knew that things were no good, and I knew that I couldn't fix it. It wasn't going to take couldn't fix it in 5 minutes. It was going to take a year because I needed to go back to it and think about it. If you use AI and it fixes things, but it fixes things without the soul really examining it. It fixes it.
But I agree. But I'm quite interested in the speed at which we can do stuff with it.
You can't dispute the speed. No, that's true.
No, and therefore, I think if you can use it in creative ways, it could be quite interesting. I was thinking while you were talking, it'd be fascinating at some point for somebody to do like an online listening of a record, and get people to type in what they're thinking about as they're listening to songs or whatever, but then just get AI to kind of bring those together, just to go, well, here's common themes that are emerging or whatever. But that's the interesting bit for me, is the speed at which it could bring together.
As long as it was just an experiment and not something that we had to live our lives by, then that's fine.
Oh gosh, no. I see it as part of a creative chain.
No, I mean, in terms of the film school, there are editing processes whereby you can now get digital editing. You can have all of this footage, and you can say, AI, put it on the screen so I can edit it. And AI will look at all of the clapperboards and everything and put it in order in exactly the way you want it. And then you go in there and do the fine tuning. That actual basic putting it in there could take you weeks to do it. Whereas I will do it very quickly. So that's quite useful. But the actual art and the actual fine cinematographical editing is actually
the human bit
element. Yeah.
You can never take away the human bit. That's the thing. When we start doing that and we just become lazy, then actually we become a bit like one of the best dystopian films of all time. And I think it is a great dystopian film, which is WALL-E.
Oh yeah.
You know, where all of those slightly large, shall we say, people are on the spaceship, and they're just, they can't even be asked to pick up their drink.
No, that's right.
And
also WALL-E understands that in order to grow a plant, it takes a long time. You can't do it in a second. So he has to nurture and he has to look after it. He has to make sure that you can't AI a plant to grow in 30 seconds.
It actually had a really poignant meaning, that film, which
yes, it's true.
Needs to go back to sometime. Harry, it's been a pleasure. For anyone that has forgotten already, I don't know why, because we've mentioned it a few times. Ghost Mechanic 9 out now, available to buy. Go to the Bandcamp page and
please do.
Inca Babies. That's under the Inca Babies Bandcamp?
Inca Babies 1. Inca Babies 1 at bandcamp.com. Is that right?
Something like that.
If you
put Inca Babies 1.
Babies Bandcamp and you'll get straight to it. And please do. I still have I've got quite a few copies left, as in a good 80 or so. So please. They won't last much longer, so please.
No, so go fill your boots, and if you did it off the back of listening to this, then let us know as well, because that's always good. People have started doing that, which is rather nice. Actually,
tell Graham your favourite track.
Well, no, they've actually, people have started going, I've been and bought that album off the back of the interview, which is great.
Fantastic.
We love to know that. Because when PR companies and people like that ask me for stats, right, and what they want to know is how many times this is streamed and all of that sort of stuff. Okay, that really doesn't matter. Actually, it's how many people have become fans of the music that matters. And if they've gone and bought the music, that's even better. So you can stat yourself where it hurts. Until next time, this has been wonderful, Harry Stafford. Thanks so much for coming in today. And this has been My Music. If you like it, you can share, do all of the button stuff and whatever that helps it out. And remember, there's now mymusicpodcast.com where you can go and find this. And I'm going to start putting other stuff on there as well at some point soon.
Thanks, Graham.
Bye for now.